Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. Today is May 30th of 2020. The world's kind of gone chaotic since the last time we've talked to you. There's been a lot of stuff going on. We hope all of you are still safe at home and haven't gotten into too much trouble.
No, not too much.
Not too much. Today, it's been kind of difficult coming up with some topics to talk about since we're now at 2-3 months without sports.
Yeah.
It's one of the longest layovers of sports that we've ever had in history, in professional sports history. I know this dates back to 1918 was probably the last time we had something this long, and I think we've already passed it now.
Yeah, definitely.
So today let's introduce it.
Yeah.
We're talking about the AFC North. That's the NFL for those of you that don't know. Those include the teams: the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's rocking the good old Big Ben uniform.
Yep, gotta rock Big Ben.
So I think right now we're going to start this off a little bit of Baltimore Ravens talk.
Yep. Well, there's not really much to say here. They're heavily favored.
Oh yeah, they're the clear favorites going into this year.
You got Lamar Jackson at the helm. If he can avoid injury.
I mean, that's a big question though.
Yeah.
Can he avoid injuries? I mean, we've seen so far he's done good. He's taken the big hits, but he hasn't come out injured. That's probably like the biggest thing in what we're talking about here is, are those hits going to start racking up like they did for, say, Andrew Luck, who just retired out of the blue after injury, and he still probably could have gone for another 10 more years if he hadn't have gotten injured so many times. So I think that's both of our biggest questions for the Ravens this year is, will Lamar Jackson stay healthy? And if he does stay healthy and they win the AFC North like everybody's saying, are they finally going to win their first playoff game? Well, Lamar Jackson's first playoff game. Can it happen? Because they've made it. They haven't won. Yes. They just brought in the number 1 rated draft class.
Yes.
They have the 4th ranked defense in 2019. Entering 2020 via CBS Sports, they ranked them as number 1 defense in the country. Yeah. They have the number 15th ranked wide receiver class. They don't throw it that often, but Jim Harbaugh said that they're going to be expanding their passing game this season because they think that opposing defenses are going to be loading the box. They're going to put 9 in the box and then leave all the wide receivers in one-on-one coverage because they believe Lamar Jackson can't get the ball to those receivers, which has kind of been up in the air. Can he not?
Is he just a running back at the quarterback position?
Exactly.
A lot of that talk. Speaking of running backs, they just added...
You want to go to running backs?
Yeah. They just added what?
They just added J.K. Dobbins, 2,000 plus yards in his final season at Ohio State with 21 touchdowns. He was kind of the big workhorse at Ohio State. Didn't really get all the flashiness because we had Justin Fields come in there. We'll talk football college football on a later date. But J.K. Dobbins at Ohio State he carried the team in a way that not many other guys carried their teams. Like you normally, the weight of the teams on the quarterback. And at Ohio State, it was on the running back because they had the brand new quarterback.
And you're going to put him in a backfield with veteran Mark Ingram. This guy won the Heisman for Alabama back in 2009.
And this team already has the most rushing yards in the NFL last season by 1,000 yards.
So you're just adding another threat.
Right. Last season they put up 3,296 yards. Second place team were the 49ers. They had 2,305. So they had him beat by almost 1,000 yards, and now you're going to tell me they're adding J.K. Dobbins in the mix?
Woo!
Not to mention, the Ravens have the easiest schedule in the NFL. Via ESPN, they had the strength of schedules all ranked out for the teams. They have strength of schedule of .438. The lower the number is, the easier the schedule is. That's the highest in the NFL. I mean, their projected record is 12-4. Most likely, looking at their schedule, it's probably going to be something similar to that.
Yeah.
There's potential, depending on really how they go against the rest of the AFC North, because outside of the AFC North, their schedule is weak.
Yes.
Once they get the hardest games for them, probably where those 4 losses are going to come, might be against, I think I saw Steelers and the Browns, really.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to beat the Bengals. We'll talk about that shortly. But the over-under for the season is 11.5, and that's Vegas lines. So I would probably say take the over on that. If you're a betting man, you're probably betting the over on the 12-4 season. What did they do? What was their record last season?
13-3?
Was it 13-3 and 14-2?
Something.
It was one of those.
It was one of those records.
One of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, they were number 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, but even like talking about the running game, they have the number 2 line in the country too.
Yeah.
So it's not just they have best defense, probably best offense.
Yeah.
Really, it's hard to find a gap in this team. There's nothing really that jumps out to you. Then they just added Calais Campbell.
Yes.
33-year-old, 6'8", 300-pound defensive end who was in the Pro Bowl last year. Had 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble return. One of those fumble returns ended up in a touchdown. He had 6.5 sacks with 37 tackles, which, interesting here, that was down from 53 the prior year. Huge drop-off. And the year before that, he had 47. So, maybe he just hit 33 years old, maybe starting to see regression.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to matter with how good their defensive line is now? Probably not. It's just going to be a boost for them. He had 10 tackles for loss. He hit the QB 25 times. Then there's this stat ranking. It's called the approximate value. It's how much value this player added to the team that season. He had an approximate value of 10, which me looking at a bunch of other stats I collected for the show is among the higher for players that aren't at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
So a value of 10 for a team, that's only going to help this defense. If you want to talk, because they had the best draft class coming out, and they had a ton of picks.
Yes, they did.
So they started off with Patrick Queen, the linebacker from LSU, number 28.
This guy, I watched this guy in the championship game against Clemson, and this guy just was everywhere, and every play he had something to do.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a reason that guys get taken in the first round. They got skill, they got talent.
Exactly.
Then a little later on in the draft for the second round pick, they took J.K. Dobbins, who we've already mentioned before.
Yes.
After that, they picked up another lineman, Justin Medebuke, and then they had 4 third-round picks. So then they took later in the third round Devin Duvernay, wide receiver from Texas, who is phenomenal, by the way. Most people don't get to see him because Texas just kind of gets crapped on for, Texas is back at 6-6. Let's go Texas. Hopefully Tom Herman turns that program around sooner rather than later. It's just better for college.
Yes.
But Devin Duvernay, he was overperformed on an underperforming team. Then they took another linebacker, Malik Harrison out of Ohio State. The linebackers at Ohio State got a lot of trash on them in the past few years. Malik Harrison was one of those few bright spots, especially off of last year's team, the 12-0 regular season Buckeyes. Yes. He was a big part of that defense. They really went and simplified the defense down, and he was a big part of leading that defense to how much they did. Then they got guards and Tyree Phillips and Ben Bredesen, and then they picked up another defense lineman, Broderick Washington from Texas Tech. Another wide receiver, James Proche from SMU, and then safety Geno Stone from Iowa. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of picks. Yeah.
That's a lot of picks. And there's not a lot of open roster spots. It's going to be interesting come preseason.
Yeah.
Who's going to get cut? Who from this list still makes the team afterwards? But it's definitely interesting to see that they got the strongest draft class this year that's ranked number 1 via NFL.com. So straight from the NFL, they believe Ravens have the best. But it clearly runs through Baltimore. The North clearly runs through Baltimore this year. Not many people are questioning it. They have been the odds-on favorite in Vegas. Just about any sports line you're picking, it's taken Baltimore. Yeah. But that's not saying that the Steelers, probably more so the Steelers and the Browns. Yeah. Browns are still trying to figure things out with the new head coach. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yes.
But
Steelers, we'll get to them.
We'll talk Steelers here. We got.
I don't want to spoil
anything. My boy over here has got quite a few pages of stuff to talk about.
I think it's about 4 pages.
So grab your popcorn, sit in. We got a long show ahead of you, most likely. I mean, you guys will know how long it is. I'm kind of sweating here just thinking about. Oh man, this guy's just gonna be talking for hours. But let's talk Cincinnati Bengals here. Cincinnati Bengals.
Obviously the talk is rookie QB Joe Burrow. He'll be the center of the Bengals team. Will he eventually lead the Bengals as starter? That's a big question. He's going to need a little help first, all right? And I got 4 things, and you can kind of go along with it, that they need to set Burrow up for success, okay?
All right.
They need to secure a productive wide receiver, okay? AJ Green, before he said he was, I don't want to play, he's franchise tag.
Yeah, so this came from January, February. AJ Green was talking, Bengals, don't you dare franchise tag me. I'm the best player you got. You ain't franchising me.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It's kind of looked like after they took Joe Burrow, they brought in a few other guys. They tried to revamp down in Cincinnati. It looks like he's definitely, I see reports, he's definitely taken Joe Burrow under his wing.
Yeah.
He's like, that is the leader of my football team. I'm going to follow him, and I'm going to make sure the rest of the guys follow him. So he's definitely bought on to Cincinnati
That's
now.
good. I mean, even at the age of 32, when he's healthy, he's probably one of the best offensive weapons in the league. And
When he's healthy. That's the
when he's
biggest
healthy,
part there.
Yeah.
Because he missed 2019 with injury. He's now entering his 10th season in the NFL and has missed 24 games in the past 2 seasons. I mean, what does he have left in the tank? That's probably the biggest question.
And if he doesn't have any left in the tank, I mean, the big free agent is going to be Amari Cooper. Or like,
No, Amari Cooper just got taken.
Yeah, Amari Cooper just got taken.
He just re-signed
He
with
just re-signed with the Cowboys.
5-year deal, massive.
I doubt the Bengals would have got him anyways, but this guy.
I mean, that's not saying there's going to be somebody in free agency next year.
Somebody like Amari Cooper.
Right, if they have a promising season this year.
They got to have a promising season.
That doesn't mean a winning record.
Yeah. No.
By any stretch of the
They
imagination.
just have to show some flashes. You know?
They can go 3-13 and still have an impressive season.
Yeah.
Because you do what the Browns did, I think, the year before getting Baker Mayfield, where they were losing games, but those games weren't necessarily being blowouts.
No.
They were 7, 10-point games.
3-point games.
Right. There was a lot of games, especially, granted, even Baker's first season with the Browns. Then they get Odell Beckham, but Baker's first season with the Browns wasn't good. Really.
No.
I mean, they were, 5-10-1 or something? 5-9-1?
Yeah.
So something like that. But like first 3 games of the seasons were all decided by a field goal. The Bengals can do something similar. Their projected record by ESPN is 5-11. They have the 6th easiest record in the NFL, but they have the 30th ranked defense in the NFL for last season.
And I'm going to get to that in a second.
And that's continue.
So it'd be great with the receivers. You got AJ Green still there. You just add T. Higgins by drafting him, and
in the
then
second round.
And you got Tyler Boyd too. You got 33 productive receivers, and you can hold on to these guys. I think they'll be on their way to being a successful football team. So another thing, they need some defensive guys.
I think before we move to defense, I want to stick to offense. Here's my biggest question for Joe Burrow. I mean, in the team. This is mainly for the team. Will the rest of the team be good enough for it to even matter if Joe Burrow is as good as it's believed? He might be a great quarterback in the NFL, but if the rest of the team around him is trash, it's not going to matter. Because they have a questionable offensive line. They were ranked 30th last season in the NFL. They have the 14th ranked wide receiver group for 2020, which is pretty good.
Pretty good.
Number 5 draft class via NFL.com. They brought in DJ Reader, defensive tackle, and cornerback Trey Waynes. Both pretty good. The defensive tackle had a great season. So Trey Waynes was down a little bit from his season prior, but he's still a young, promising guy. He's only 27 years old.
You got the young offensive guard, Michael Jordan.
Right, yeah. We'll see how that works.
Wasn't he the highest paid player on the team last year?
It could have been. The Bengals were all over the place. But the biggest question with that offensive line, are they going to have a running game? Last season, they had 1,517 rushing yards, which was the 8th worst in the league. They haven't added anybody at the running back position, so they still have
Joe Mixon,
and Giovanni Bernard. I mean, both of those guys. Joe Mixon's still young, promising. Bernard's getting kind of older, running back wise.
Joe Mixon, I think, is having some. Did he get his contract extension yet? Or
I haven't heard if he's gotten that yet.
So they better sign him.
Right. But if you want to move over to defense, their defense is abysmal. I mean, Joe Burrow can put up 45 points in the game, but if they let up 52 points, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. The Bengals' pass rush, their pass rush was more effective near the end of last season. They showed some flashes, but they need to give defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo and defensive line coach Nick Eason more to work with. I hate to say it, but Bud Dupree, he's franchise tag. He might be leaving Pittsburgh. And then Matthew Judon was also franchise tag.
Exactly. There's
so
a lot
if you
of
put those
guys
Dupree and Judon will prove to be great fits in Anarumo's 3-4 defense.
Right.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of guys coming in free agency next few years that could help a team like the Bengals, but then they still have to show that they're promised, that they have some sort of promising season this year. Like their predicted record from ESPN is 5-11.
Yeah.
I think that's a little high, but this goes back to the 6th ranked strength of schedule. It's the 6th easiest, so that becomes a part of the factor when you're talking about this. Is that strength of schedule going to help them get a better record? And are free agents going to see them facing nobodies? Not nobodies. These are still NFL players, best of the best, but not facing the best teams. Even if they do go 5-11, is that still showing enough promise to those free agents? Like, yeah, you guys won 5 games, but look at who you faced. Yeah. That's a big part of it when you're trying to bring in a free agent.
Yes, and speaking of bringing in free agents, a big problem with that is, well, the Bengals don't even have an indoor facility to practice in.
Right.
They've had to move into Paul Brown Stadium on multiple occasions because the weather this wasn't very good to practice.
They're just playing in fields outside of the stadiums.
Yeah.
They don't have an indoor facility.
They need it. I mean,
and that's another thing trying to bring in those free agents, like you just said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if I'm a free agent, I'm going to go practice in a state-of-the-art facility. I'm getting paid $20 million a year.
I'm not going to go practice on a high school field.
I'm not trying to blow out my knee on the field that was just being played on Friday night by some high schooler that wishes he was me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go risk that. Put me in actual practice.
Same with coaches, too.
Exactly. A good coach isn't going to go to a program that's got absolutely nothing. No. He can go back to college and get a program 10 times better in the same city.
Exactly.
He can go to the University of Cincinnati and get a program that's twice as good as the NFL team.
Exactly.
He could go to Xavier, coach basketball, and have a better facility.
They need to get their
act together.
Yeah.
You're an NFL team that's been there long enough. It's time to put your money where your mouth is. If you want to be an elite program in the AFC North, who this year has been considered possibly the hardest division in football, I mean, it kind of seems like they have the most promise, the most talent, the most teams that are able to compete in every game they play. Like, there probably isn't a game this year where, besides the Bengals that we're talking about now, that the Browns, Steelers, or Ravens either aren't the favorites or aren't very close in those matchups. Like, the spread in those games isn't going to be more than a 2-possession game.
No. So, you want to move on to your team now?
Yeah,
Cleveland Browns?
Let's move it on to the Cleveland Browns here.
Cleveland Browns, yeah. Get this crap out of here.
Get the Bengals out of here. Get the Ravens out of here. It's time to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Granted, we've kind of let Matt have a little more bias towards the Steelers than I've tried in every conversation we've had to keep my personal bias out of it when it comes to the Browns, the Steelers, the Buckeyes. I let it show a little more for the Buckeyes. He lets it show a little more for the Steelers. But Cleveland Browns, probably one of the most interesting teams this offseason.
Yes.
They have the 4th easiest strength of schedule in the NFL. Their predicted record is 9-7. Mm-hmm. That's via ESPN. 22nd ranked defense in 2019 though.
Yeah.
That's a big part of losing games is we were there, we had a lead, and then it was gone by halftime. You know, they get up to the big, 20-0 lead, 27 lead, now it's 20-14 lead, and then it's a 20-21 deficit.
Yeah.
And your defense isn't making stops. And that's part of it. I mean, the predicted record from ESPN was 9-7, which I believe is the same for the Steelers. Yes, it is. But their over-under is 1 point less at 8.5. And biggest question for the Browns this year, it has to be the offensive line, really. I mean, we can talk Baker Mayfield for days on end, but before you get the ball to Baker Mayfield, the ball goes to the offensive line.
Yes.
The offensive line is also controlling the run game.
Yes.
So they just brought in Jedrick Wills, star left tackle from Alabama. Then they have Joel Bitonio now at left guard, J.C. Treader, the NFLPA president, at center. Then it's still kind of the right side where we see a lot more of weakness. Wyatt Teller, pretty good. And then they just brought in Jack Conklin at right tackle, who allowed 3 sacks for the Tennessee Titans last year, while the rest of the team gave up 40. He's 25 years old, 6'6", 308 pounds. He's a big old boy.
Yeah.
And, Zion Williamson is 6'6", and that's in the NBA for those of you that are trying to compare sizes. Yeah. Zion Williams is 6'6" and 260. We consider that a big old boy. This man is 48, 58 pounds heavier and probably more muscle in his legs, than we see in the NBA. So the Tennessee Titans made the playoffs. They were on a run last year. He allowed 0 sacks in the playoffs.
They made the AFC Championship game.
Right. He allowed 0 sacks in the entire playoffs, and that's going up against the best of the best on defense.
Yes.
The rest of the team gave up 6, which is still pretty good by the rest of the team. He's expected to start at the right tackle. That's where he's being protected, and had the AV of 9, which was right up there with Calais Campbell at 10. So he's going to be a lot promising for that offensive line here, and that's a big part when we're talking how are these Browns going to do. It starts at the it starts and ends at the offensive line.
And it also starts with their new head coach, Kevin Stefanski.
Yes.
This guy came over from the Minnesota Vikings. He was with the Minnesota Vikings since 2006.
Yeah,
he
was offensive coordinator.
He was like 1 year offensive coordinator.
Yes, but the interesting thing about this, no head coaching experience in the NFL.
No.
And the Browns keep taking these risks on head coaches that haven't coached before.
But
I mean, we brought in Hugh Jackson, who I don't know who he'd ever actually coached before. And we saw how that turned out. Then we brought in our defense. Then we brought in Freddie Kitchens. He was garbage. Oh my God!
Now you're bringing in Stefanski, but I think this guy can
Stefanski has promise.
Yes,
and his offensive scheme seems to be exactly what the Browns are touted for. Because the Browns have the 4th ranked wide receiver group for going into 2020, but it's top heavy, and that's the biggest part. Their wide receiver group: Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But then Rashard Higgins, kind of, he's there, then he's not. Then Kadarius Hodge, Damian Ratley, and Taywan Taylor. Biggest pickup: Donovan Peoples-Jones. They took him in the draft. Probably number 3 and number 4 wide receiver this season. That's a big part of it. But where it gets interesting is Kevin Stefanski runs a 2 tight end offense.
Yes.
And they run a lot of play action. They run the ball a lot.
I'm going to talk more about that offense too.
And then that's when we get into Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, 2nd in the rushing title race last year. He wants the title. He keeps saying it. I'm coming for it. I don't care how many carries I get. That title is mine. That's what's going to happen here.
I'll talk a little bit more about that too.
Right. We're going to talk Baker Mayfield a little bit last year, but going to tight ends here. I want to talk tight ends. This is probably the biggest part of the Browns' offense this season. Yeah. They just brought in Austin Hooper, 25-year-old, 6'4", Pro Bowl tight end. Started 10 of 13 games last year. Targeted 97 times for 75 receptions, 1 drop, 787 yards, 6 touchdowns, and an AV of 6. Now, tight ends-wise, that's pretty high. If we compare that to David Njoku, their current starter, missed last season with a concussion and a broken wrist after being upended in a game. He missed most of the season before he made a recovery. Then there were some kind of issues team-wise with head coach and him, so he ended up getting benched at the end of the season. But going back to 2018, he's now going to be 25 years old as well, 6'4", 246. Started 14 to 16 games, 88 targets, 56 receptions, 2 drops, 639 yards, and 4 touchdowns. These guys are built to play in Stefanski's system. I mean...
Yes, they are.
Right. And this is interesting. We're talking about tight ends this year. David Njoku's entering a contract year. It's a contract year for David Njoku. The Browns have said he is part of the plans moving forward, but this is a big thing if he doesn't provide this season, because the Browns also brought in, I believe, a tight end in the draft that I have somewhere in here. Cleveland Browns bringing in Harrison Bryant from Florida Atlantic in the 4th round. The Browns now have 4 tight ends, and none of them are really bad tight ends either. These are probably, I'd put them all in the top 50 tight ends in the NFL right now. So they're in the right system for it, and I'm interested to see with the 2 tight end setup, putting both. I mean, this is going to be one hell of an offensive weapon on the field with Austin Hooper, Njoku, Landry, and Beckham. With Chubb in the backfield, whoo! That's a pretty nice offense right there.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I'll let you take it away here.
All right, I'm going to begin with Baker Mayfield. He had a great rookie season, right? You agree with that, right?
NFL record for touchdown passes, passing Russell Wilson and Peyton Manning by far, too. Yeah. He passed him by far.
And he played less games than him.
Played less games and had far less interceptions.
Exactly.
I think in Peyton Manning's first year, it was 27 passing touchdowns. Yeah. With, I think he was up near 20 for interceptions. Yeah. Baker Mayfield puts up
14
interceptions with how many touchdowns did you have?
27
touchdowns. Something like that. 27 touchdowns is the current record that Baker Mayfield set.
That's it. Yeah.
And Russell Wilson, Peyton Manning, I think it was like 20, 24, or 21 or whatever.
I'm going to go into more expectations. Expectations
okay, what
for Mayfield.
Will Baker Mayfield get over the sophomore slump and return to his freshman glory?
He needs to throw less interceptions. He threw 21 interceptions.
That's game plan number one, less interceptions.
That was the second most in the NFL last year.
Only behind Jameis Winston, right?
I think
he went 30 for 30. Touchdowns, interceptions.
Like I said, 14 interceptions in 14 games as a rookie. Hopefully under Stefanski's more discipline and more pro-style offense, which should involve more running plays. I'm going to get into that with Nick Chubb. And it should have shorter passing routes, which should set up Mayfield to make better throws, and his interception total will be reduced.
Yeah. So I pulled stats from his 2018-2019 seasons.
Yeah.
2018, he was 6-7 as a starter, with 63.8% pass completion, 3,725 yards with 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 266 yards per game, and an average rating of 93.7, and 25 sacks with the AAV of 10. Then you move to 2019, 6-10 as a starter, 59.4% completion. Most people you see going from freshman to sophomore season, you see an increase in that. His decreased by 4.5% basically. Then 3,827 yards. So you're telling me in 3 more games he had basically the same amount of passing yards, 22 touchdowns and 21 interceptions, which you just mentioned, abysmal. Granted, 22 interceptions on its own is nice, but once you put in the 21 interceptions, it depreciates the value. It's like taking a Ferrari off the lot.
Exactly.
Once you leave the parking lot, the depreciation is half.
Yes.
Then 239 yards per game with a rating of 78.7. Here's the big part of it that I can somewhat attribute to his interception ratio, his interceptions. 40 sacks. The year before, 25 sacks. In 3 more games, 15 sacks. And that goes to that offensive line being ranked 23 last season. They had, I believe, the 29th ranked right tackle last season. And that's where a lot of those sacks came from. And he still had an AV of 11, which is up from the year prior. So a big part of his sophomore slump can be attributed to this offensive line and a new head coach with a new system. And they wouldn't give the ball to Chubb. No. Just give the ball to Chubb. He finished second in the NFL rushing. Give the ball to Chubb. Oh my God.
I will get to that.
Yes,
I will get to that.
But
it's right here.
Quarterback. So you just mentioned expectations. Quarterbacks that suffered the sophomore slump and turned out great. I just want to list a few. Just so people think, oh, sophomore year sucked. He's done. Browns move on. Browns aren't moving on unless he sucks again this season.
And they signed Case Keenum just in case.
I'm going to get to in a minute.
We're going to get to that too. Yeah.
So, Matt Ryan, great first year, bad second year. Hall of Famer Steve Young. Drew Brees, granted, there was an asterisk next to Drew Brees because it was his second year starting, not his second year of being in the league. He didn't start his first season in the league.
Well,
but his first season where he started in the league was good, and then his second one, not so much. And then there's Super Bowl, two or 3 time Super Bowl winner for the Oakland Raiders, Jim Plunkett. He also had the sophomore slump. And the list kind of goes on and on, but I just found those guys, put those at the top of my list of guys he could, don't count him out just yet. All these guys we may have counted out in the sophomore seasons. Could you imagine if the Saints gave up on Drew Brees after a bad second season?
Yeah. Be pretty bad.
Right. I
so,
mean,
moving down with more expectations.
Yeah, give me your expectations here.
So Mayfield, the second one, he needs to throw more touchdown passes. He had 22 last year, which that's a miracle. I mean, for how many interceptions he had.
For 21 interceptions to still throw 22 touchdowns with that many turnovers is impressive in its own right.
If Mayfield reduces the interceptions he throws, there's a possibility of his touchdown total being higher. And
definitely, I mean that's a big part of it. All those 21 turnovers, that's 21 possessions that can end in a touchdown. You give half those to Chubb and half to him. Congratulations, you just threw 32 touchdowns in the season.
Yeah, and another expectation is, he's got to have a higher completion percentage next year.
Oh, that's number one. 59 is unacceptable.
59.4.
Right. Most quarterbacks in the NFL are up in the 70s to 80s.
That was the second worst rating behind Josh Allen. Which, Mayfield had a 63.8% pass completion as a rookie.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it drops 4.5% going from your first year to second, that's not a good thing for the Browns.
No.
Especially when they're trying to build a team around him and build a team around a new head coach and Kevin Stefanski with a new system. Hopefully this new system is probably the biggest tell of how the Browns are going to do this season. Because they're not getting the offseason right now for Baker to go and learn this with his entire team there and under the head coach, with the whole pandemic now. It's harder for the players to learn, especially once you're bringing in rookies and offensive linemen as a rookie, not being able to put in reps with the rest of the line and 2 with the quarterback. Look for his false starts to go up. Look for a lot more false start penalties next season for the Browns. I think that's going to be a big tell on that offensive line. More penalties, but better. They're going to have more offensive yards, less sacks. It's going to be better.
I'll talk about the offensive line a little bit too with this whole scheme and how I think Stefanski should work it. But the last expectation for Mayfield that I have, and he's proved that he can do this, is just go out and win football games. Man.
Right. He's shown everywhere he's gone that he can win a football game.
You got Landry, you got Beckham, and you just got Austin Hooper, and David,
Chubb,
and you got Chubb. I'll get to him in a second.
How many times can we say this offense around him?
Yeah.
God, could you imagine if you took Cam Newton is a free agent right now. If he was on the Browns,
and I get to him.
Yeah, I know you got a little bit to say about that. If he was on the Browns, we're talking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If Baker Mayfield can live up to the expectations of last season, if he turns everything around, blocks out the noise, and does what he said he was going to do last season, we're actually talking Browns being Super Bowl contenders for real this time.
I have the room right here.
Right, and that is the whole big thing of, can they do it? Are they going to be a Super Bowl contender? And I think 90% of that rests within Baker Mayfield. Can he handle the pressure?
Yeah, that's a big part.
You want to talk Chubb here?
Yeah, let's talk what's going to Nick Chubb. Let's see where we go. Let's assume that where is it? Another key factor is that they need Nick Chubb to do nothing but produce, and he did that last year.
He showed he can do it.
He showed he can do it, but this he has to have this season has to mirror last season. It has to be better, if possible.
I mean, that's hard to do considering he was number 2 in rushing and had not as many carries as some of those other guys that were up there with him.
Yeah, like Derrick Henry.
Right.
But he needs, like I said, this season needs a mirror last season for them to be contenders to win this division.
And I think it probably will. When we're looking at Kevin Stefanski's system, a lot of play action with the 2 tight ends. A 2 tight end set normally means they're running a football.
Yes.
Which means we're probably going to see a lot more Nick Chubb. That's exactly what Cleveland wants. That's exactly what Chubb wants. That's what Baker wants, and that's what the NFL wants.
He needs to win a rushing title this year. That's an expectation. He should have got it last year. He'd bring the first rushing title since 1968 for Cleveland, which Leroy Kelly won. It wasn't even Brown, it was Leroy Kelly. He should have had it last year, but you can thank Freddie Kitchens for that one. Chubb had the lead going into the final game on the road in Cincinnati, and Kitchens proceeded to give him the ball only 15 times. And then Derrick Henry passed him up. Chubb finished with, 1,494 yards.
Which is...
Which is great.
That's great.
That's great.
Don't let anybody tell you he had a bad season.
No.
But it could have been better if Freddie Kitchens ran the damn ball.
I know.
They said it best on the blind side. Run the damn ball.
Derrick Henry finished with 1,540 yards. It wasn't that far. If he runs the ball more this year, he should easily reach 1,600 yards.
Oh, he could have an offensive running performance.
And that should happen because Stefanski has a more run-style offense.
Exactly.
So, another
dark horse for the MVP? Nick Chubb? Maybe. Call it now. No. I won't shave my head, but...
Still...
We're going to do that in a later show. We're going to talk NBA because there's talk of NBA coming back. We'll get that to that at a later date. here's a big question that I think is interesting. So the Cleveland Browns just brought in Case Keenum. Case Keenum's best season in his entire career. He's now 32 years old. Has played for quite a while. His best season was running Kevin Stefanski's offense in Minnesota. Under that offense, Case Keenum was fantastic. Last season, not necessarily. He was with the Redskins. They sucked. They turned to Dwayne Haskins after 8 games. Case Keenum started 8 of 10 games last season before the Skins turned to the rookie Dwayne Haskins. In those 8 games, he went 1-7, 64.8 completion percentage, which was Baker's freshman season, and this was last season. So 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 170 yards per game, 15 sacks. It's an interesting decision that they bring in a quarterback that's run their current head coach's system. Now, I think this is either to teach Baker Mayfield more so the system faster, get him into this quicker, have a quarterback that's run it so he can see what he needs to do. You know, Baker Mayfield's played the backup a lot growing up. You know, he's the transfer quarterback. He's not supposed to be where he is now. And so he knows the role of being behind somebody and passing them, taking someone else's job. But I think if Baker Mayfield starts off bad, if he's not picking up towards the end of the season, do the Browns turn to Case Keenum?
I think so. I think they do.
So Keenum with Stefanski, 22 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. That's a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is the type of TD to INT ratio you go for. If someone's giving you a 3-to-1, that's pretty good. Then had 3,547 passing yards with a 67.6% pass completion, 236.5 yards per game, and a rating of 98.3, and 22 sacks. So, interesting to see if Baker Mayfield bounces back, has his freshman year, they're not going to turn to Case at all. No. Case is going to be sitting the sidelines the whole season. But if he doesn't start out the way we hope he will and the way we think he will, how soon before they turn to Case Keenum? How soon before Baker Mayfield is just another name on the back of the quarterback jersey?
I don't know. He's gotta come out right out of the gate, and he's gotta prove what he can do. I mean, I talked about this earlier. I mean, he's gotta come out and he's gotta do good.
Right.
They're not gonna wait anymore. If he starts out 0-4, you're gone. Okay. I would even say 0-3 or 0-2.
No, they won't go after 2 already because there's a lot of faith in Baker Mayfield still. I would probably 10 games in
10
would be the first time we would see Case Keenum most likely because they're going to try and round up Baker. They want him to be the guy.
Yeah.
They took him. They put 3 years into him. They brought people in around him. They put the system designed for him. They bring in a head coach for him.
Yeah.
They've built so much around Baker Mayfield for this offense. They've really left the defense kind of out in the dust, a lot of it. And they're going to try and stick with him, but I don't know how much longer they're going to stick with him. Yeah. This is his season. It's a make it or break it year for Baker Mayfield.
Yes, it is.
That's why I'm saying, no. If he struggles for the first 10 games, that's the soonest I think we'll see Case Keenum is either in the 10th game or game 11 of the season. But on the opposite side of this, if they have a good season, most likely we're not talking winning the division. No one's probably going to win the division besides the Ravens. Yeah. No one's really touching those guys.
No.
What's interesting is who gets the wild card spot?
It's going to come down to the Steelers and the Browns.
Really, that is the biggest question. Is it going to be the Steelers or the Browns for the wild card spot? Because if you're looking at the rest of the AFC, there really isn't a big number 2s in all of those divisions.
No, unless the Steelers pull off a miraculous season and win the division.
But that's just it. It'd have to be a miraculous season. Big Ben would have to return to his former glory before injury. His 2018 season, which I have written down, we'll talk about in a bit, was his best season ever.
Yeah.
If he goes back to that, and we see Juju Smith-Schuster return to his form that he had with Antonio Brown, we're going to talk that. I won't get too far into it.
Don't spoil it.
Right.
Don't spoil it.
No, but can the Browns end the NFL's longest NFL playoff drought? 18 years. 18 years since the Browns were last in the playoffs. They have only had 2 winning seasons since rejoining the league in 1999, 2002, and 2007. They have not won a playoff game in 22 seasons back to 1995.
And
that team is now the current Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Take that as you will.
Yeah. And didn't they beat the Patriots?
Yes, they beat the Patriots. They beat Billy B. Yeah, I mean they used Billy B to beat the Patriots. Yeah. There's also a few other people on that team that have
Nick Saban.
made their names.
Nick Saban. Friends with Iowa. Oh man, get this out of here. Let's move on to the Steelers.
You want to move on to the Steelers? Browns, you're out of here. We're going on to the Steelers now.
Oh boy. Everybody.
Oh boy.
Get ready.
Okay,
one.
now.
There's two.
I think I gotta go make some dinner or whatever. I'm gonna be here for a while with him talking now.
No, I think I threw one out.
Oh god.
Yeah, there's four.
Oh man. Oh boy.
So,
we're gonna be here for a while.
Hang on to your hats, everybody,
Guys,
because I got a lot of stuff.
I have 1 page for the Steelers. I have 2 pages for the Browns. This man brought up a whole 4 pages.
It's double spaced, but
You're using the smaller font than I am.
yeah, it was 12. Sorry, here we go.
All right. How do you want to start this? I'll take it away, man. This is your team. I'll let you take it.
I'm going to start out by talking about this defense returning. Oh my God, we got my man TJ Watt coming. You got Cameron Hayward, and you got Devin Bush coming back, who had a really good year his rookie season. Yeah, you bring it on.
All right. So last season, 2019, number 2 ranked defense.
Yep.
This is where it's interesting. CBS Sports has them ranked as the number 6 defense entering in 2020. So are we going to see that great defense that we saw last season?
I think
so.
Are
they going to take? A lot of people saying that they have to take a step back. They were too good. They outperformed their expectations. You know what?
Screw you, people.
I'm not going to say screw you, people, because obviously you're allowed to have that opinion.
Yeah.
It's an opinion until it becomes a fact.
Yeah.
And that's what happens this season.
This is going to be a fact.
Are they going to return?
Yes.
People say no. Some say yes.
You got Minka Fitzpatrick coming back. You got Forrest Joe Hayden. Bud Dupree, who we talked about earlier. Yeah, but they could sign him. They could sign him back. I think they might. You're bringing back Minka Fitzpatrick. You got corners Joe Hayden, who never disappoints anybody.
I don't like Joe Hayden anymore.
Yeah.
He was a Brown. Now he's on the Steelers. I'm sorry. You can't like him.
You're also bringing back Steven Nelson. This Steelers defense ranked 5th in total defense last year. 3rd in pass defense, only allowed 194.6 yards per game, and they ranked 5th in the scoring defense.
I'm not a Steelers fan by any stretch of the imagination.
I know.
But I am an unbiased observer when it comes to it. At least I try to be. I am a Browns fan at heart, but I try and push that aside when watching games, unless I'm watching them. Then I will totally pick the Browns to kick the Steelers, every time. Yeah. Which they normally don't, but...
Except for last year with the helmet.
Yeah,
We'll get that reindeer boy in a second. And
it sometimes happens.
We'll get the duck, too.
But I was sitting in this apartment last season. All of my roommates here are Steelers fans. So I watched just about every single Steelers game. And frankly, I was impressed by this defense every time I saw them. It was taking me flashbacks to the Steel Curtain. I mean, these guys were physically dominating every team they went up against.
Yeah.
It really wasn't even close when it came to offenses trying to beat them. I mean, what was their record last season?
8-8.
8-8 without their starting quarterback. With the freaking reindeer and a duck as your starting quarterback.
And I'll get to those. Yeah,
your reindeer got his head beaten not once, but twice. From Earl Thomas and Myles Garrett, who are bad mother. Those are huge men.
Yeah.
Pounded him into the ground. They still win 8-8.
You got screwed up a little bit.
Juju Smith-Schuster sucked last season.
I'll get to him in a second. Let's talk about this defense. Right?
Yeah, only keeping the defense.
This defense led the league in both sacks, 54 sacks, and then 38 takeaways. Woo! I remember Minka took
my shoulder hurts just thinking about it.
Minka took away 3 or 4 against the Colts. Remember? Oh my God. All right, we'll move over. On the offensive side, this defense looked like Super Bowl champions.
The defense were Super Bowl caliber defense.
This offense looked like a JV football team, man.
Oh
my God.
It was abysmal. And here
Big Ben, my man, went down early in the season. Their playoff hopes went up in smoke. They still managed to finish 8-8 with combined help from backups Mason Rudolph and Devin Hodges.
Devlin Duck Hodges.
We got Devin Duck Hodges, and we got the reindeer boy Rudolph. Yeah.
But
Santa Claus came into town, and he's like, Rudolph, can you lead my crew with your red nose? That didn't happen, okay? That did not happen.
No. There was a lot of hype for Rudolph. I loved watching him at Oklahoma State. I followed his college career. He was amazing.
Yeah, he was. The whole year, I was like, Dad, the Steelers need to draft this guy. And
when they did take him, I don't know if there was anybody in Ohio, maybe, and like at least where I'm from, that had as much hype for Mason Rudolph going to the Steelers. I'm like, oh my God, the Steelers just got the next guy.
Yeah.
And then I watched this guy in a Big 12 offense sling it like he was Tom Brady.
Now, when they brought him in, I'm going to talk about a little bit now, then go back to it. He was great. When they first brought him, it was in that Ravens game.
When he started out, beautiful.
Yeah, and then even the pass he threw when he got decked in the head was great. But that Earl Thomas, oh man, it changed it. And he got scared, and he turned into a you-know-what. He tried to take it out on Myles Garrett, and that didn't really happen.
I do want to talk Mason Rudolph here for a minute. And this is, once again, me trying to be unbiased when it comes to the AFC North. Obviously, that's our division here. And just trying to more go with the grand scheme of things. And in the current climate we're at in the world, Mason Rudolph probably shouldn't be the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
He still has a chance.
He still has a chance, but in the current climate we're at, and accusations made against him by Myles Garrett last year, when he called him... He claimed that Mason Rudolph used a racial slur against him, which caused the beating. That everybody knows this. Everybody's heard it.
Yep. Kyle Larson.
This is... Yeah, Kyle Larson just had the same thing and got kicked out of NASCAR a week later.
Yeah.
In the current climate we're at, when you mention Mason Rudolph's name outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers now, it has the bad connotation to it.
Yeah.
People, it's already ingrained in their mindset, Mason Rudolph, racist. And even if it may not be, he's in the position to be a stereotypical racist. If you look at where he's from, he's a country boy from the South.
Yeah.
I mean, people already have a picture of that in their minds, and then once they hear Myles Garrett, a guy who's been very vocal when it comes to
he's
everything.
Also from the South, Texas A&M.
Yeah, also from the South, has been very vocal, and has a lot of people that like him. When we had this whole situation...
I'm a Steelers fan. I like Myles Garrett.
It's hard not to like him because he's, on the field, one of the best. But off the field, also one of the best. You know, he's a nice guy. Nobody ever complains about him. Then after this incident last year, it gave Mason... Whether or not it happened or not, whether he said it or not, he now has this connotation next to his name of racist. And... that's not the look the Steelers want going forward. No. We're in 2020. There are, right now, it's May 30th. There have been riots the past 4 days in Minneapolis. R.I.P. George Floyd. Everything that's happened has been wrong. We try to keep politics out of the show as much as possible. But this is kind of one of those situations where politics has crossed into the sports world. Not because it has anything to do with sports, but because it has something to do with the world. Yeah. And racism in sports have kind of been side by side forever. Athletes are finally, they have always used their voices to speak up. We are in one of those times where they're doing it again. And this whole goes back to Mason Rudolph being the quarterback for the Steelers. In the current climate we're at, it's not a good look for the Steelers organization. That's why, just as it wasn't a good look for NASCAR to have Kyle Larson. Yeah. It's just going to be one of those things. He's a good quarterback. He might go find a fit somewhere else. Or he might stay with the Steelers. The Steelers just might not care. No. Mike Tomlin's the head coach there. Mike Tomlin's there to win.
Mike Tomlin brought in Mike Vick. And there was protesters out there, dog killer and all that. Mike Tomlin doesn't care.
Mike Tomlin doesn't care.
He brings in the guys that he thinks are going to get him to the promised land.
And it's worked. He hasn't had a losing season.
No! It's not a losing season, people.
A 500 season is a good season if you're a Browns fan. Or a Bengals fan, or the lower half of the NFL.
So, we talked about that a little bit.
That's just kind of a side note there. Mason Rudolph, kind of question marks surrounding how that goes moving forward.
So, I gotta talk about Juju here. Juju was a shell of what he was the year before. But who could blame him when you're catching passes from a duck and from a reindeer? Okay? And
Who
guess
would
who's
have
coming
better
back?
if Mason Rudolph could have actually done his Rudolph powers and flown the ball to him?
And you got a healthy Big Ben. We could see the old Juju again.
We could see the old Big Ben.
We could see the old Big Ben.
I got his 2018 stats here.
I got it too.
Yeah.
But you
So
got
9-6-1. Career high in passing attempts at 675. Career high pass completions at 452. 67% completion, which is the second highest in his career. Career high passing yards of 5,129, which is seventh most all time in a single season. Career high 34 touchdowns, with also second most career interceptions for a season at 16. But a QB rating of 96.5, 24 sacks, and an AV of 14. Incredible. The best season he's ever had on a team that had Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. If they have the current defense the Steelers do now, we're talking about another Super Bowl for Big Ben and the Steelers.
Stairway to 7.
Yes, the stairway to 7. If Ben Roethlisberger was healthy last year, we may have seen it again.
Yeah.
We may have seen one. We may have seen a playoff run. Granted, last season probably wouldn't have made the Super Bowl with the teams we saw in there. I mean, Mahomes and the Chiefs and the Ravens.
Tom Brady was still there too. I know.
Right, and Tom Brady was still in the Patriots. They still made a run.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been kind of interesting to see the Steelers with that defense, how that defense would have actually matched up in a playoff setting against those teams.
Yeah. So, Juju Smith-Schuster, his last full season with Big Ben, caught 111 passes for 1,426 yards and 7 touchdowns.
That's right.
And the opening night, he caught against they got blown out by the Patriots.
Right.
Schuster caught 6 balls for 78 yards, and in last season's opener, right before Big Ben went down. That's good.
Exactly.
That's a good start.
I mean,
and then, he just went down.
I like their wide receiver class, but it's not as strong as the rest of really the NFL or the rest of the AFC North, because ESPN has their wide receivers room ranked at number 18th going into 2020. Not good, not great, not terrible. No. They want it to be better. And it can be better if it's Juju. If Juju has the season we wanted to, James Washington has the season he has last year.
Oh my God.
His season last year was incredible. They didn't necessarily win a lot of games.
He had 16.7 yards per reception.
Exactly.
James Washington
came out of nowhere, and I was probably, I'm a Browns fan. I was loving it every time they gave it to him. I was like, man, I took the wrong guy in my fantasy draft because I had Juju on my fantasy team, and man, did he screw me over. I couldn't trade him for a bag of salt. It was terrible.
And then you're also adding rookie receiver Chase Claypool coming out of the... Man, this guy's a monster.
Yeah. Don't forget Deion Kane.
Yeah.
Chase Claypool, though, he's...
6'4", 238 pounds. This guy caught 66 passes for 1,037 yards, 13 touchdowns last year for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. With Schuster, Washington... You got Deontay Johnson coming back.
He's also in a position that he doesn't necessarily have to go into the wide receiver position every time. He can play tight end.
Yeah.
They can slot him up in the tight end position.
This guy's got to reach above everybody.
He's a huge guy. Granted, this is kind of the biggest downfall of the Steelers off-season draft. They had the number 30th ranked draft class via NFL.com.
Yeah.
And that really is their biggest pickup. They picked up Chase Claypool from Notre Dame, and then maybe number 2 is Anthony McFarland, another running back. Because you guys need a fourth running back. Yeah, we're going to talk that in a second.
We're going to talk James Conner.
But you can also have Jalen Samuels out there at wide receiver too. He's kind of that...
player option.
Yeah, he's a running back wide receiver option. I mean, you can do either way with a guy like that because of his stature, his size and speed that he works with. He can, in his hands. He can play both positions, and I think they're going to utilize
with these guys, with Schuster, with Washington, with Claypool and Johnson, Big Ben has plenty of receiver help. And you're bringing in Eric Ebron from the Colts, which you'll talk about him.
I got some stats.
Didn't really have the best season last year, but he's had good.
He had a season that ended in some, I'll say controversy. It's not controversy as we would normally say it, but it was still controversial ending.
Yeah. And you're also bringing back Vance McDonald. This guy, I mean, what is he, 30 years old? But He's still a beast. And they still have draft pick Zach Gentry, the guy from Michigan.
And if you think about it, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been set up perfectly.
Yeah.
They have the second easiest schedule in all of the NFL, only behind the Ravens.
They're just like the Browns. The Browns have been set up to win.
Exactly.
And so do the Steelers.
Both of these teams are in the position to win. And at this point, they should win. There's no reason that they shouldn't win.
Yeah.
I'll go Eric Ebron for a second here. So 2019, 27 years old, 6'4". He's kind of either on the tail end of his career or the start of a prime. It's really kind of hard to tell when you look at a tight end. They either start out big or they finish big.
He's still young now, 27 years old.
Still young, big guy, 6'4", 250.
Yep.
Started 2 of 11 games in which he played last season. He had a season-ending ankle surgery. He's apparently what had happened was he has been dealing with an ankle injury for the past few seasons. There were some issues with the front office and the coaching staff of his former team, the Colts.
Yep.
The Colts. And he had decided he was already getting benched for the guy that they have now signed for, I think it was a 4-year, $100 million contract or something.
What's the guy's name?
I can't think. I saw it when I was looking for stuff, but I didn't write it down. Just down with myself. But in those 11 games he played, 52 targets, 31 receptions, 5 drops, 375 yards, and 3 touchdowns. You know what? That's not bad for a guy that's not the starter.
No, and he's made some insane catches too. Like I watched a couple of Colts games. I'm like, oh my god, look at this guy catching that ball. There's that one pass he caught earlier in the season.
But back to what I was saying, there was some discrepancy with the coaching staff and him. He was getting benched, so he decided to have a season-ending injury. I believe it was around week 13. It was towards December, so it was around the end of the season there. He decided he's going to finish off. He realized he wasn't going to get a new contract from them, so entered free agency. Signs here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Put himself in a pretty good position with probably a pretty good chance of, if not starting, number 2.
Number 2.
I mean,
you got Vance and Ebron together. Man.
Right. I mean, he's in a position that he can start depending if they're running a 1 or 2 tight end setup.
Yep.
He's going to be on the field. I mean, it's kind of, they signed a guy like this. He's going to be there.
He's going to be there. And let's go to running backs, all right? It's been 2 years almost, right, since Le'Veon Bell's been out of the picture.
And hasn't really been in any picture in New York. He went to the Jets, hasn't really, I mean, he's been up there in rushing yards, but nothing of his former glory.
We got James Carter coming back, kind of injury prone, but I want to talk a little bit about him. We got Connor. We're going to have to use Connor, Jalen Samuels, Benny Snell Jr., who I think is going to have a breakout season.
I loved watching Benny Snell when he was at the University
I hated him because he ran all over Penn State in the book. I'm like, man, look at this guy. Whoever picks him up is going to have a good run.
I was begging for
I'm glad we picked him up.
Right.
And we also got rookie Anthony McFarland out of...
Anthony McFarland. He came out of Maryland.
Yep.
Granted, Maryland had a down season last year. They have the past few dozen. And, but there's a but for this. He put up back-to-back 200-yard games against Indiana and Ohio State. Ohio State's defense against the rush last year was, I believe, top 5.
Oh my god.
And he's one of the few guys that ran for over 100 yards against Ohio State. And he put up 200 in back-to-back games. That's kind of all we got out of him last season. Maryland was all over the place in terms like first 4 games, 4-0. Then they went 3-0 to start the season. Everyone had him kind of climbing top 25, and then
so
they went downhill quick. But Anthony McFarland had a good few games there. Obviously, was a later round pick for the Steelers. He's probably not going to see the field much with Benny Snell and Samuel behind Connor.
Yeah. I mean these running backs, they offer deep and a diverse array of options for Big Ben in that backfield. And if they don't go off and sign a free agent running back, I'll get to that in a second. But I mean James Conner, this guy's been hitting the gym during quarantine. This guy's got muscles on his back muscle. This guy's ripped. This guy's
He's
ready
so ripped that his muscle got muscles. What the hell?
Seems like everybody's been working out for Ben, trying to get better for Big Ben.
And Big Ben has done it too.
Big Ben! Oh my god, this guy's zipping 50-yard passes.
He looks like he's 25 again.
Looks like he's 25 again.
They just picked him out of
it seems
college.
like everybody's stepping up for Big Ben to look for that big playoff push run. But the Steelers could also add veteran free agents. I'm going to talk about that to add depth to their core. Devontae Freeman's still out there, veteran running back. This guy was very productive with Falcons.
I don't know if you guys have to see how Connor does this season.
Yeah, you got to see how
go.
Connor does.
If Connor has a good season, there's no need to go sign one of these older veterans.
You also got LaShawn McCoy, who's a veteran out there.
That too.
Yeah.
He's never going to retire, even though he probably
should.
He's going to end up with a broken hip on the field when he's 54 years old or something. We're just going to be like, I told you so.
Let's go over wide receivers. 2 pages left. Go wide receivers. I mean, you got your guys coming back, but it would be nice to add a veteran in there. You got veteran Demaryius Thomas, Chris Hogan's out there, the guy from Patriots, and Josh Gordon's still out there too. That's a stretch, but
maybe you guys bring back Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, he's desperate.
Thomas is an imposing figure, 6'3", 225 pounds. Said he's healthy again after dealing with Achilles and hamstring injuries for over the past 2 years. Hogan, who had a huge game against the Steelers in the AFC Championship in 2016. This guy who didn't even play college football. He played rugby for Penn State.
Right.
He missed most of last season though with knee injuries. And then Gordon, well, everybody knows that story.
Everybody knows Josh Gordon, especially as a Browns fan or AFC North. Everybody knows who. His
off-field issues have prevented him from playing, but he has proved to be a productive receiver while he's on the field.
When he's on the field, he's undoubtedly one of the top 15 wide receivers right now.
Pittsburgh has went to the kind of bad guy before. They
have no problem being the bad guys.
They had Martavis Bryant a couple years ago. I remember they had Plaxico Burress too.
Exactly.
So
there's just.
I'm moving on down the list here. They replaced the guys that have left. I mean, Ramon Foster retired. They replaced him with Stefan Wisniewski when he come out of the Chiefs, right?
Yeah,
I think he was on that Super Bowl team with the Chiefs, so that's a good pickup. And then they also picked up defensive tackle Chris Wormley from the Ravens because they have to replace Javon Hargrave, who signed a multi-year deal with the Eagles. They also signed fullback Derek Watt, TJ's brother, out there.
The funniest thing I saw when it came to them signing Derek Watt, they asked TJ, they went up to him, they went just like, hey, do you mind if we sign your brother? And he went, why is this even a question? Yeah, sign him out, little bro.
They released Roosevelt Nix. This guy was a Pro Bowl last year. He was a team captain. They released him. But Steelers could also sign linebackers to back up Devin Bush and Vince Williams after releasing Mark Barron and the departure of Tyler Matakevich, who signed with the Bills. Their current backups include Christian Kuntz, Ulysses Gilbert, and Robert Spillane. This trio has made 16 tackles combined in 17 regular season games.
Wow.
That's horrible.
That is awful. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, that is awful.
Free agent linebackers include Alec Ogletree, Wesley Woodyard.
Alec, I like that one.
And Darren Lane. You know a little bit about Darren Lane?
I know Darren Lane, former Buckeye of Ohio State.
Ogletree recorded 80 sacks and 6 passes defense in 13 games for the Giants last season. Woodyard, he'll be 34 next season, but that's probably one of the best reasons why he's still available. He's a 12-year veteran, 100 regular season games with 110 starts under his belt, so he's pretty experienced. And then Lee has showed some promise over the years. Hasn't
done anything in the NFL. As a Buckeye fan, disappointed. He had a lot of promise coming out of Ohio State, one of the best linebackers in the country at that point, with that entire linebacker crew. Joining the NFL didn't really get much.
If you bring him into Pittsburgh, though,
if you put him around a defense that's already good,
and you're gonna have Ryan Shazier come in, former Buckeye, just like Lee, and he'll teach him some things.
Shazier as a partial coach, not as a player.
Not as a player.
Just
shape this guy up.
That.
And the last thing I have for free agents, sign Cam Newton, man. Go out, sign Cam Newton, back up Big Ben, this guy.
Cam Newton's already 32?
31.
31, okay. So you still probably, you can get another 8 years out of it.
Yeah. And you still have Mason Rudolph there to be a backup to Cam Newton. Cam Newton has proved,
it's Cam Newton.
It's Cam Newton. If you put him
I
in
don't
that
understand what happened in Carolina, and that they thought it was a good idea to get rid of Cam Newton.
Yeah, exactly. And you're gonna replace him with Kyle Allen?
Get out of here!
Yeah,
Get out of here!
Get out of here!
Hey.
Get out of here with that garbage!
Get out! Yeah, that was some straight up.
That's all
nonsense.
I got there. But with Cam Newton, bring him in. You'll have Big Ben and Cam Newton. Cam Newton will take over here.
Oh yeah, I mean,
year
I mean, that all depends. Does Cam Newton want to do that? If no other team's offering him, is that something
Cam
he would do?
Newton's still a big guy.
Although interesting, I just bring up you bring up free agents there. Browns just made an offer. I believe it was to Javion Clowney, who lives in Ohio. Yeah. He turned it down.
He turned down.
He turned down. I think it was around. I think it was like around $70 million. Like 4 years, $70 million.
Good, they don't need him.
Right, they really don't. Could you imagine if he was on that defensive line? Miles Garrett, Olivier
Rudolph
Vernon.
would be like, Rudolph would like, I'm like, don't put me in.
He'd be back in the North Pole.
Don't put me in.
Right. Could you imagine that defensive line? Oh, man. Jadeveon Clowney declined
Bottom
that
line,
offer.
if they added, Jadeveon Clowney, watch out for Lamar Jackson.
Ooh. Okay, so I think...
He's already in trouble. Garrett chasing him.
Right. I'm sure Earl Thomas wants to hit him again.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, ooh, that was fun. Let's do that again. So let's finish up the show here with predictions for the Ravens. What are we thinking here?
They're going to win their division.
They're winning the AFC North.
13-3.
13-3. I'll stick with...
Say that Pittsburgh gets one victory from them.
14-2. I'm going with another 14-2 season for the Ravens there.
Pittsburgh.
Well, let's keep what's going on what we talked about. Let's go with Cincinnati Bengals, Matt.
5-11. Maybe 6-10, maybe. You gonna go 3-13?
I'm going 3-13 on the Bengals. They suck. I was skimming the internet for hours trying to find anything positive for this team. They ain't got nothing. They're awful. They're awful. Joe Burrow's hopefully going to have his decent season so he doesn't get kicked out and moved on to the next one. Hopefully he puts up some Andy Dalton numbers because they were satisfied with that.
But keep in mind, Burrow, you're going to have TJ Watt chasing you. You're going to have Myles Garrett chasing you. You're going to have Matthew Judon chasing him too.
He's going to have two of the best defenses in the NFL twice a year.
Yeah. I already saw pictures.
Right.
With Watt.
Cleveland Browns. What are you thinking?
9-7, 8-8. Maybe 10-6. Maybe.
I'm gonna piss off Browns fans.
What are you doing?
7-9. They're not breaking. They're not having a winning season. I'm sorry. New head coach with new systems. Yeah. It's gonna be better than last year. Baker Mayfield's gonna have a decent season. Probably gonna lose Odell after this season. Yeah. Nick Chubb is gonna probably win the rushing title. Defense is probably gonna suck. Well, not suck, but they're going to be average, middle of the road.
Yeah.
If they step it up, maybe we get 8-8. I don't want to buy into the hype just yet. I am waiting to see the Browns actually put the product on the field. Because we saw flashes of it last season where they could have been a contender.
They could have.
But then they sucked. So I'm going to piss off some Browns fans. 7-9 with the potential to go 8-8, but I don't see a winning season this year. Yeah. Then Pittsburgh Steelers, Matt.
All right, man.
Try and keep bias out of it. Just try a little bit.
Okay, it's either going to be 11-5. That's a stretch.
That's a big stretch.
I either go.
But with the second easiest record in the NFL, that's not that bad.
That's not that bad. They got some good factors, like I just said. Right. They're coming in. You got TJ Watt coming back. You got Minka coming back. You got Big Ben coming back. Connor's been working out. He's been doing some stuff in the gym.
Record? What is it?
10-6.
Okay.
9-7 if they have that year. They will not go 8-8 again. Okay, I will promise that. You heard it here. They will not go 8-8.
You're right.
Okay.
They will not go 8-8.
Okay.
That's my prediction.
Oh no. Don't say so.
I'm gonna piss off some Browns fans. I'm pissing off the Browns fans again. I've got to say, with that 7-9 record from the Browns, those 2 wins for the Browns, they probably go to the Steelers, and that's why I go 10-6 as well for the Pittsburgh Steelers, winning the wild card.
Browns fan,
Okay,
It's gonna be Browns Steelers wild card. We'll be sitting here. You just remember a couple months ago, you picked the Steelers to win this game.
Yes, I did.
So,
you know what? I stick with my pick here. Browns still need to put it on the field. Steelers, they've shown they've been there before. If they have the running game that they want, if James Conner
this
shows
guy
up,
comes back,
if Big Ben puts up another 2018 performance, if Juju Smith, if this, if that, if it goes the way it should, 10-6, no problem.
No problem.
All right.
That's about wrapping it up.
I think that's gonna rack it up.
Rack it.
We're gonna re-rack our weights here and wrap up the show here in Youngstown, Ohio.
As always, I'm Matt Morrison.
I'm Alek Koberna. This is the Casual Sports Podcast. Make sure to check us out on YouTube. Look up. It's hard to find sometimes. Look up Casual Sports Podcast. It'll take you right to us. We're going to put out links on Instagram and Twitter. You can find it in the bios there as well. Yeah. On Instagram and Twitter. On Twitter is Casual Sports Rep. You can put in Casual Sports Report or use the hashtag CSR2020 because we are still the only ones using it, so it's easy to find us that way. Yep. Instagram is Casual Sports Report as well. We are now going to be putting stuff out on Anchor. See that coming in the next few weeks. Hopefully, we're going to try this out. Follow us on twitch.tv/Casual Sports Report. We're going to try and do live streams in the future using that. And without any further ado, thank you all for joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Keep the beer, keep the fridge stocked.
Keep the fridge stocked with water.
With water.
Wink. And you know what? See you next time.
See you next time.